Ladies and gentlemen, imagine walking into a room full of people, but instead of feeling uplifted, you feel drained. Have you ever met someone who, with just their words, can shake your confidence? Someone who always finds a way to make you feel small. These are the signs of toxic people, people who can dim the brightest of lights. Today, let us take a moment to reflect on the kind of energy we allow into our lives. Because the truth is, some people are like anchors. They hold you back, weigh you down, and make you doubt your own abilities. But when you recognize them, you take back your power. So, what are the major signs of toxic people? Toxic people have a unique ability to manipulate and control others, often in ways that are so subtle that their victims do not even realize what is happening until they feel trapped. Their control does not always come in the form of direct orders or aggressive behavior. Sometimes it is hidden in the way they speak, the way they make others feel guilty, or even in the way they pretend to care. They use emotional tactics to bend others to their will, making them question their own decisions and lose confidence in their ability to think independently. One of the most common ways toxic people manipulate is through guilt tripping. They make others feel responsible for their emotions, their failures, or even their happiness. If someone tries to set a boundary, the toxic person will react as if they have been deeply wronged. They will say things like, "After everything I have done for you, this is how you treat me." Or, "I guess I just don't matter to you anymore." These words create doubt in the minds of their victims, making them feel as if they are the ones being selfish or unkind. Over time, this leads to a dangerous cycle where the victim starts questioning their own feelings, wondering if they are truly in the wrong. Another powerful tool of manipulation is gaslighting. Toxic people will twist reality to make others question their own memories, perceptions, and even sanity. If they say something hurtful and are confronted about it, they will deny it ever happened. They will say things like, "You're overreacting," or "You always imagine things." They rewrite events in a way that benefits them, making the other person doubt their own judgment. This slow erosion of confidence leaves their victims feeling lost, constantly second-guessing themselves and unsure of what is real and what is not. Toxic people also control through excessive criticism. Instead of offering constructive feedback, they constantly point out flaws, belittle accomplishments, and make others feel as though they are never good enough. No matter what their victim does, it is never right in the eyes of a toxic person. If someone achieves something significant, the toxic person will downplay it or shift the focus to themselves. They will say things like, "Anyone could have done that," or "That's nothing compared to what I have been through." This constant criticism wears down self-esteem, leaving their victims feeling incapable, even when they are perfectly capable. Fear is another tool they use to maintain control. Toxic people create an environment where others feel afraid to speak up, express their thoughts, or make decisions without approval. They use threats, even if they are subtle. These threats do not always have to be physical. They can be emotional or psychological. A toxic person might threaten to leave, to withdraw their love, or to ruin someone's reputation. They create an atmosphere where their victim feels like they have no choice but to comply with their wishes, leading to a complete loss of personal autonomy. Another form of control comes in the way toxic people isolate others. They discourage their victims from seeking advice or help from others, making them dependent on the toxic person for emotional support and validation. They create a sense of distrust, convincing their victims that other people do not truly care or understand them. Over time, the victim starts feeling completely alone, with no one to turn to except the very person who is causing them harm. This isolation strengthens the toxic person's control, as their victim becomes too afraid to leave or seek help. Toxic manipulation is not always loud or aggressive. Sometimes it comes in the form of a soft voice that convinces others they are not strong enough, not smart enough, or not capable enough to make their own decisions. The worst part is that victims often do not recognize what is happening until they are already deeply entangled in the web of control. However, the moment they start questioning their own reality, their own decisions, or their own worth, it is a sign that they need to take a step back and recognize the toxic influence in their lives. Recognizing manipulation is the first step toward breaking free, reclaiming confidence, and choosing a life that is free from control. Toxic people have a way of always playing the victim, twisting situations so that they never have to take responsibility for their actions. No matter what happens, they will find a way to make it seem like they were wronged, even when they were the ones who caused harm. They refuse to acknowledge their mistakes and instead shift the blame onto others, making themselves appear innocent while painting those around them as the villains. This manipulative behavior is designed to gain sympathy, avoid accountability, and keep others feeling guilty or obligated toward them. One of the most common ways they do this is by exaggerating their struggles and hardships to make others feel sorry for them. They will remind people of their past difficulties whenever they are confronted about their actions. Instead of taking responsibility for hurting someone, they will bring up their own pain, shifting the focus away from the issue at hand. If someone tries to call them out for being disrespectful, they will respond with statements like, "You don't know what I've been through," or "I've had a really hard life and you're just making it worse." By doing this, they avoid addressing the real problem and instead make the other person feel guilty for even bringing it up. Toxic people are also experts at twisting facts to make themselves appear as victims. If they betray someone's trust, instead of apologizing, they will claim they had no choice or that they were forced into the situation. If they hurt someone's feelings, they will insist that the other person is being too sensitive or misunderstanding them. They might even go so far as to accuse the other person of causing the issue in the first place, turning the tables and making the real victim feel like they are at fault. This manipulation is designed to confuse people, making them question their own feelings and reality. Over time, this can wear down a person's self-esteem and make them more likely to accept blame for things they didn't even do. Another way toxic people play the victim is by constantly seeking pity and validation from others. They will go to great lengths to make sure everyone around them knows just how much they are suffering. They use their pain as a tool, making sure that others see them as helpless and in need of constant attention. This ensures that people stay emotionally invested in them, always trying to help or fix things, even when the toxic person is the one creating the problems. The more people feel sorry for them, the more power they have over those individuals. In relationships, whether romantic, familial, or professional, this behavior becomes even more damaging. When a toxic person makes a mistake, they will find a way to shift the blame onto their partner, friend, or colleague. They will act as if they were forced into making bad decisions because of someone else's actions. If they are caught lying, they will insist it was because they were afraid of being judged. If they are confronted about toxic behavior, they will claim that the other person is being cruel or unfair to them. By constantly portraying themselves as the victims, they manipulate others into forgiving them repeatedly, even when they do not deserve it. The most dangerous part of this behavior is that it makes others feel trapped. People around toxic individuals often feel guilty, exhausted, or responsible for their emotions. They start believing that they must always be careful with their words and actions to avoid upsetting the toxic person. They may even begin to doubt their own judgment, wondering if they are truly the ones in the wrong. This emotional manipulation creates an environment where the toxic person never has to change or grow, while those around them suffer silently, constantly trying to keep the peace. The cycle continues because toxic people do not see themselves as the problem. They refuse to acknowledge that their actions have consequences, instead choosing to blame circumstances, past traumas, or the people around them. Even when they are clearly in the wrong, they will find a way to rewrite the story so that they come out looking innocent. They will cry, argue, and manipulate until the other person gives in, allowing them to continue their toxic patterns. This behavior does not just harm individuals. It damages relationships, destroys trust, and creates an environment where accountability is non-existent. The only way to break free from this cycle is to recognize these patterns and refuse to be drawn into their games. Toxic people have a way of draining your energy, leaving you feeling exhausted, emotionally depleted, and mentally fatigued. They thrive on negativity, feeding off the emotions of those around them. And the more they engage in this behavior, the more they seem to grow stronger, while their victims become weaker. Their presence alone can feel suffocating, as if they carry an invisible weight that slowly presses down on the people they interact with. The worst part is that their methods are often so subtle that many people do not even realize how much they are being affected until they feel completely drained. One of the ways toxic individuals deplete energy is by constantly complaining. Nothing is ever good enough for them, and no matter what happens, they will always find something negative to focus on. Even in moments of happiness, they will find a way to bring up something that upsets them, shifting the atmosphere from light-hearted to heavy. They do not seek solutions or advice. They simply want to vent their frustrations and have others absorb their negativity. At first, it may seem like they just need someone to listen, but over time, their endless complaints become a burden, making those around them feel like they are carrying problems that are not even theirs to begin with. Toxic people also drain energy by creating unnecessary drama. They have a way of turning small issues into major problems, escalating conflicts that could have been resolved with a simple conversation. They will misinterpret words, twist situations, and involve multiple people just to fuel their own sense of importance. The chaos they create forces others to invest time and emotional effort into dealing with problems that should not even exist in the first place. Instead of focusing on personal growth or happiness, those around them become trapped in a cycle of conflict, constantly trying to resolve issues that were never theirs to solve. Another way they feed off negativity is by spreading gossip and negativity about others. They are quick to point out the flaws in people, to criticize, and to bring others down. Their conversations are rarely uplifting. Instead, they focus on what is wrong, what is missing, or what could go wrong. Being around them feels like standing in the middle of a storm, constantly being hit with words that create doubt, insecurity, and discomfort. Even if they are not directly criticizing the person they are speaking to, the sheer amount of negativity they spread is enough to make anyone feel exhausted. The energy of a room shifts when they enter, and the lightness disappears, replaced by an unspoken heaviness. Toxic people are also emotionally demanding. They expect constant attention, validation, and reassurance, but no matter how much they are given, it is never enough. They drain the energy of those around them by always needing something, whether it is emotional support, time, or effort. Their problems become the priority, and their needs always come first. People who try to be there for them often find themselves running on empty, as their own well-being is pushed aside in an effort to keep the toxic person satisfied. But the truth is, toxic people are never satisfied. They take and take without ever giving in return. The exhaustion caused by toxic people is not just emotional, it can become physical. Being around them too often can lead to stress, anxiety, and even physical symptoms like headaches, fatigue, or a general feeling of being unwell. Body and mind are deeply connected, and when someone is constantly subjected to negativity, it takes a toll in ways that are not always immediately obvious. This is why, after spending time with a toxic person, one might feel inexplicably tired, unmotivated, or even sad. It is not always about what they say or do. It is about the energy they bring and the way they drain the spirit of those around them. Recognizing this pattern is crucial because toxic people rarely change. They do not see themselves as the problem. Instead, they believe the world is against them. The longer someone allows them to stay in their life, the more energy they will lose. Protecting one's peace means being aware of these energy-draining interactions and making a conscious effort to set boundaries. No one deserves to live in a state of constant emotional exhaustion, and the first step to reclaiming energy is understanding that not everyone deserves access to it. Toxic people are often filled with jealousy and insecurity, making it impossible for them to genuinely celebrate the success of others. Their own feelings of inadequacy prevent them from being happy for someone else's achievements, and instead of offering support or encouragement, they respond with resentment, bitterness, or passive-aggressive behavior. This kind of negativity can be deeply harmful, especially when it comes from someone who is supposed to be a friend, family member, or colleague. Instead of lifting others up, they feel the need to bring them down in order to feel better about themselves. One of the most common ways their jealousy manifests is through backhanded compliments. Rather than openly expressing their envy, they disguise it as subtle criticism. They might say things like, "Oh, you got promoted? Must be nice to have such good luck." Or, "You look great in that outfit. If only I had as much free time to focus on my appearance." These comments are designed to diminish the achievement, making it seem as though success is a result of external factors rather than hard work or talent. They do not want to acknowledge someone else's effort because doing so would force them to confront their own insecurities. In many cases, toxic individuals will try to downplay the success of others by shifting the focus to themselves. If someone shares exciting news about a new job, an award, or a personal milestone, the toxic person will immediately redirect the conversation to their own struggles or experiences. They might say, "That's great, but I've been working so hard and still haven't gotten any recognition." Or, "I remember when I did something similar, but it wasn't a big deal for me." By doing this, they refuse to let the spotlight shine on anyone else, making sure the attention always comes back to them. This is a defense mechanism, a way to avoid feeling like they are being left behind. Another way their jealousy becomes apparent is through subtle sabotage. Instead of supporting others, they find ways to undermine their confidence or progress. If someone is trying to start a new business, improve their skills, or work towards a goal, the toxic person might discourage them by pointing out all the potential risks and failures. They will say things like, "Are you sure you're ready for that? It seems really difficult," or "I heard most people fail when they try that." Rather than offering helpful advice or motivation, they plant seeds of doubt, hoping to keep the other person from moving forward. This stems from their own fear of being outshined, as they would rather see someone else stay stagnant than surpass them in any way. In professional environments, jealousy-driven toxicity can be especially damaging. A toxic coworker or boss might refuse to acknowledge someone's contributions, take credit for their ideas, or create unnecessary obstacles to make their success harder to achieve. Instead of fostering a positive and supportive atmosphere, they turn the workplace into a competition, making it difficult for others to thrive. Their insecurity prevents them from being happy for a colleague's growth, and they may even go so far as to spread rumors or create tension to ensure that no one surpasses them. Even in friendships and personal relationships, jealousy can be toxic. If someone achieves something significant, whether it's finding a great relationship, earning a degree, or reaching a fitness goal, the toxic person may react with coldness or resentment. Instead of celebrating the moment, they distance themselves, making the other person feel guilty for their success. They may stop reaching out, change their attitude, or act as though the achievement is insignificant. This emotional withdrawal is a form of silent punishment, a way of saying, "If I'm not happy, you shouldn't be either." Over time, this kind of response can make people hesitant to share their accomplishments, as they start associating success with losing relationships rather than gaining support. At its core, this behavior is rooted in deep insecurity. Toxic people measure their worth by comparing themselves to others, and when someone else achieves something they have not, it feels like a direct attack on their self-esteem. Instead of being inspired or motivated, they react with negativity, trying to bring others down to their level. Their inability to celebrate someone else's success is not a reflection of the other person's worth. It is a reflection of their own internal struggles. The problem is, their jealousy does not just harm them. It creates a toxic environment that can make others feel guilty for their happiness. Recognizing this pattern is essential for anyone who wants to protect their energy and confidence. It is important to understand that a toxic person's inability to be happy for others has nothing to do with the person achieving success and everything to do with the toxic person's own insecurities. No one should have to shrink themselves to make someone else feel comfortable. Success should be celebrated, not hidden, and anyone who cannot genuinely share in that joy is revealing more about their own issues than anything else. Toxic people have a way of disrespecting personal boundaries, making others feel guilty for protecting their peace. They do not recognize limits, nor do they care about the emotional, mental, or physical space that others need. Instead, they push, intrude, and manipulate until they get what they want. disregarding how their actions affect those around them. The worst part is that when someone tries to set boundaries, toxic individuals react with guilt-tripping, anger, or emotional blackmail, making the person feel like they are being selfish or unreasonable for simply trying to maintain their well-being. One of the most common ways toxic people violate boundaries is by constantly demanding attention. They do not respect personal time or space, expecting others to be available whenever they need them. They will call at odd hours, interrupt personal time, or expect immediate responses to their messages, regardless of what the other person is doing. If someone does not respond right away, they act as though they have been wronged, saying things like, "I guess you don't care about me anymore," or "I see how it is. You're too busy for me now." These statements are designed to instill guilt, making the person feel obligated to always be available, even when it is inconvenient or draining. Toxic individuals also overstep emotional boundaries by unloading their problems onto others, without considering whether the other person has the capacity to handle them. They see others as emotional dumping grounds, expecting them to listen to every complaint, every crisis, and every piece of drama they create. They do not ask if the person is in the right mental state to take on their burdens. They simply assume that their issues should be prioritized above everything else. When someone tries to step back and protect their own emotional well-being, the toxic person reacts with phrases like, "You are supposed to be my friend," or "If you really cared about me, you'd be there no matter what." This manipulation makes the person feel guilty for needing boundaries, as though self-care is a betrayal rather than a necessity. Another way toxic people violate boundaries is through unwanted advice and control. They insert themselves into situations that do not concern them, offering opinions and making decisions on behalf of others without permission. They do not respect autonomy, believing that they have the right to dictate how others should live their lives. If someone refuses to take their advice or asserts their independence, the toxic person takes it personally, accusing them of being ungrateful or dismissive. They say things like, "I was only trying to help," or "You never listened to me," making the person feel bad for simply wanting to make their own choices. This type of behavior is a way to maintain control, ensuring that the toxic person always has influence over the lives of those around them. Toxic individuals also violate physical and social boundaries, often disregarding personal comfort levels. They might show up uninvited, borrow things without asking, or ignore requests for space. In social settings, they may push others into uncomfortable situations, insisting that they participate in activities they do not want to be a part of. If someone resists, the toxic person may mock them, call them boring, or pressure them into compliance. Instead of respecting the other person's wishes, they make them feel guilty for standing up for themselves. This persistent disregard for boundaries creates an environment where people feel like they cannot say no without facing consequences. Perhaps the most damaging aspect of boundary violations is how toxic individuals react when confronted. Instead of acknowledging their overstepping, they turn the situation around, making the person setting the boundary feel like the bad guy. They act offended, accuse the person of being distant or selfish, and sometimes even use past favors as leverage. They say things like, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me," or "You've changed, you're not the same person anymore." These tactics are meant to create doubt, making the person question whether they are being unfair for simply trying to protect their peace. Over time, this can lead to emotional exhaustion, as the person constantly feels the need to justify why they deserve to have boundaries in the first place. The problem with toxic people is that they do not see boundaries as a healthy way to maintain relationships. Instead, they view them as obstacles to their control. They push until they get their way, disregarding how their actions affect others. The more someone gives in, the more they demand, creating a cycle where the toxic person always takes, while the other person constantly sacrifices their own well-being. This is why setting boundaries with toxic individuals is not just important. It is necessary for emotional survival. No one should feel guilty for protecting their peace, and anyone who tries to make them feel otherwise is only proving why those boundaries were needed in the first place. In life, we encounter many people But not all of them bring positivity, support, or genuine care. Toxic individuals manipulate, drain, and disrupt, leaving others feeling exhausted, guilty, and unworthy. They refuse to take responsibility for their actions, play the victim to avoid accountability, and feed off negativity to maintain control. Their jealousy prevents them from celebrating others' success, and their constant boundary violations make people feel guilty for prioritizing their own well-being. The truth is, toxic people do not change unless they choose to, and waiting for them to respect, appreciate, or uplift others is a battle that often leads to disappointment. The most powerful step anyone can take is to recognize these behaviors and refuse to be trapped in their cycle of manipulation. Setting boundaries is not selfish, it is necessary. Protecting one's peace is not wrong, it is essential. Choosing to distance oneself from toxicity is not an act of cruelty, it is an act of self-respect. No one should have to dim their light to make someone else comfortable. No one should have to sacrifice their happiness to maintain a relationship that only brings pain. The people we surround ourselves with shape our energy, mindset, and emotional well-being. That is why it is important to choose wisely, to walk away when necessary, and to never feel guilty for valuing peace over chaos. Let go of those who bring toxicity into your life, and make room for those who bring love, growth, and positivity. Because at the end of the day, the energy we allow is the energy we live with. Choose wisely.